Hi, everybody. I am Rick DiClemente with StarSelf.com on tonight's episode of Astrology Unplugged 76. Tonight is part 2 of what we started last week, which was how does one planet mix with another planet, whether that's by conjunction or opposition or square or any aspect. How does one planet mix with the other? And it's so complicated that I knew it would take about 2 weeks. Tonight we got up to Jupiter. We're going to go outward from there. I'm not going to break it down into squares and opposition per se. I'll be talking about how these planets combine. Now, I do have a document that I will be using, and the document is, let me see here. The document is, oh, I see. Okay. The document here is this document. And if you would like to download a copy of this document from my website that looks just like that, you can download it at the following address: starself.com, starself.com/back, like your back stands for backup, /back/class/rulerships.jpg. So I'll show it to you in another way. So you'll be able to see it all once. Here it is. So if you want to get a copy of that document, you can print it out on your printer. Go to starself.com/back/class/rulerships.jpg, and you'll be able to print out that document. Now that document is, I'm not going to go into much on it tonight, but it shows you we've done Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and how the Sun combined with all these, how the Moon combined with all these, how Mercury combined with all these. I'm not going to take the time. This is something you're going to have to do on your own and learn that the Sun rules Leo, that the Moon rules Cancer, that Mercury rules these two, Venus rules these two. The Sun is in its exaltation or best place in Aries. Mars' best place is in Capricorn. Jupiter's best place is in Cancer, and the opposite is called, these are always opposite of each other. This is the best place for the planet to be. This is the worst place for the planet to be. This is a pretty good place for the planet to be, and a pretty not so good place for the planet to be. So you should have this memorized as you work with learning the planets, which is why I made the chart available to you for printing. I could talk for weeks on just this chart, but that's not the issue here. The issue is to continue on with part 2. And for those of you who, let's see here. For those of you who would like to join us, besides the ones you watching, if you would like to join us next Thursday or any Thursday, you can go to the following website. Go to starself.com/unplugged. Any Thursday night, 8 o'clock, free. Thursday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time till about 9:30. Just go to starself.com/unplugged if you would like to join us in our live sessions, besides watching the replays on YouTube. Okay, now I was thinking, where is Susan? Susan is not here at the moment, so I'll save that for her for later. So did you have any questions about what we talked about last week? In other words, you cannot possibly start to evaluate in a chart that this is more important than that. Did Zoom change anything? Well, Susan Avere, I do not see you. You might be here, but I don't see you. There you are. Okay. What I wanted to say to you, you can't possibly evaluate how somebody's health is if you don't know what diabetes is, what a toe injury is, what a headache is, what a bad liver is, what a broken collarbone is. So don't waste your time trying to figure out, you're not ready to figure out what's more important than something else because you're still learning the pieces. Now, when I can say to you, what does Venus-Saturn mean? When I can say, what does Pluto square Uranus mean? And you know what that means, then we're talking. But you're not near there yet. So we're still back there playing with our toy box, our toolboxes. We're playing with our toolboxes. So don't worry about it. And you don't have to memorize these, but you need to start getting a grasp. And next week, I think we're going to do astrodrama, where you're going to, or you, not me, you are going to speak for the planets. And I'm going to give you a situation and have you just turn your microphone on and start talking as if you're one of the planets. And that's how you learn. Astrology goes well when you crawl out on a limb. And the thinner the limb, the better. That's how it works. So you asked, when we tuned in last, we're now ready for Jupiter. And Jupiter is that planet that is ebullient, and it wants to expand, and it wants to grow, and it wants to have fun, and it's not real picky about what it does, it just wants to do it. So when you combine Jupiter with Saturn, which is the next planet, you have real complications here. Now, I happen to have Jupiter opposite Saturn. I know people with Jupiter conjunct Saturn. I know people with Jupiter square Saturn. Now, what you have there is the principle of expansion inside yourself is at odds with the principle of contraction. See, Saturn doesn't get up in the morning and say, how can I make Rick's life worse for him? How can I make him feel like his shoes are tighter or money is less? The books are bad when they talk about Saturn because they don't explain what its mindset is. Saturn wants it to be real. That's why Saturn downsizes things a lot of times, because what you're doing isn't working. And since Saturn's main issue is to make things work, to make sure, oftentimes it downsizes just because things have gotten out of hand. So you've got that part of you that wants to go spend money, Jupiter, wants to invest money, wants to go to a racetrack, wants to go gambling. Very common, people with gambling problems almost always have an abused Jupiter in their chart somewhere because they don't know limits. Jupiter does not understand limits. Sagittarian people do not understand limitation. Susan Avere is different because she got a very, very strong Saturn. Very strong. So she's not a good one if you want to analyze what a Sag is. But she can sense both energies. Well, the Saturn part of you wants to install limitations just because it wants it to work. Well, your Jupiter-Saturn aspect is very telling. So if your Jupiter-Saturn in your chart are not getting along well, then you don't know whether to invest your money or save your money. I don't know. Should I invest it? Spend it? Should I hold on? I don't know. It seems like every time I spend it, I should have saved it. It gets confused. Whereas people that have a nice combination of Jupiter and Saturn in their chart, they can operate almost magically. Like they invest at the right time, they save at the right time. So the two planets are really critical in a chart. Just like Jupiter and Saturn, you'll find the same thing is critical with Saturn and Uranus. Because Jupiter and Saturn have to be in harmony, so you know how to grow but stop it, how to grow but contain it. Saturn and Uranus are about growing, exploding, putting it back together, exploding, let it blow up, put it back together. So we'll get to that later. So Jupiter and Saturn are very social planets. They have a lot to do with when you sit back and you try to figure out your relatives, or you try to figure out your friends, and you try to figure out what makes them tick socially. Look at their Jupiter and Saturn. If they got Jupiter and Saturn both in Cancer, I don't care what their sun sign is, they're going to want to stay at home. If they're real timid and they got Jupiter, Saturn, and Aries, they're going to want to go out all the time. So Jupiter and Saturn are very indicative of how you socialize. So you have to understand, what does socializing mean? Socializing means I'm expanding beyond myself. I'm growing beyond myself to include my ego with other egos. So the Jupiter, if it's left untouched, it just grows and just gets spaced out and just turns into nothingness. That's what happened to Hendrix. Hendrix was this phenomenal guitarist, and he had no limitations. He did not understand limitation, so he just burned out his fire. He came and he lit his fire, and his fire burned out. And that's what he was about. It wasn't wrong. But if you have a Saturn, Saturn can help you cool it. So the ultimate person has a nice balance between Jupiter and Saturn. You spend a little, you save a little. You go on a limb, you come back. Do you understand? It's not grave. It's not one of the big deals in astrology. It just so happens, I think these two planets just know each other so well. You don't usually see fireworks coming out of their combinations. Now, as we move on, you're going to see really different stories. Jupiter, Saturn. Next one's Jupiter, Uranus. Now, I got this one too. I got Jupiter, Uranus square myself. Now, the square indicates that there's trouble. And there is trouble. What happens when you got Jupiter out of control and you got Uranus, which is born out of control? You got Jupiter, Uranus, and wahoo! That's the trouble with Jupiter, Uranus. I got this crazy idea. I'm going to go rob a 7-Eleven. Uranus says, woo, let's go do it. You don't have anybody holding back. Nobody's got any sense. And that's the trouble with Jupiter, Uranus. Sounds like fun. Let's just have fun doing it, right? It doesn't matter, Susan, if it's conjunct or opposite or anything. This is a good question. If the conjunction can be terrible. Get this out of your mind that conjunctions are good. Get it out of your mind. Get in your mind, Jupiter, Uranus trine, Jupiter, Uranus sextile are always good. Yes. Conjunctions are very much good and bad at the same time. Oppositions and squares are almost always heavy on the downside. Conjunction, well, I am Jupiter and I'm going to sing my song. Okay, and I'm on stage. And what does a conjunction mean? Uranus says, well, I'm Uranus and I'm going to sing my song. Well, you got these two crazy people on the stage at the same time. And the odds of it sounding pretty good are pretty low. Because they're both just too wild. This is why you can't make formulas. Yes, Jim Carrey, yes. Yes, people like that, they're just out of it. You know, Richard Simmons. That Richard Simmons, that's a Jupiter-Uranus energy. Yes. Ooh, when they exercise, ooh. You got to remember, when you keep typing, I'm not able to see what you're doing. Not only can't see, but I'm looking at your faces and not what's on the bottom of the screen. Yes, Richard Simmons is a great example of Jupiter-Uranus energy. Now, if you want somebody to come in your party and liven it up, he's the right guy, right? But if you want something a little saner, a little more packageable, you would do better with the Jupiter-Uranus trine or the Jupiter-Uranus sextile. But the problem with the Jupiter-Uranus is it's too lively. It's just, my wife had it, she would tell me, quit trying to calm me down. Quit trying to calm me down. Well, sometimes I wish she had calmed down. Then I realized the big problem was I had it too. Okay. Now, but the Jupiter-Uranus can be really, really good when you're really upbeat and all this. I was watching a video the other night by one of the West Virginia Mountaineers' famous basketball players, not Jerry West, the #2 ever at WVU, beside Jerry West, was a man named Rod Hundley. And he got the nickname Hot Rod Hundley. And he was a Scorpio. And he was really, really good. He went to the NBA and he played. And he became an announcer for the Utah Jazz for 35 years. And he couldn't keep it together. He had a beautiful wife, 3 beautiful daughters, and he was wild. He was womanizing all the time. He was never around. He couldn't be with his kids. He couldn't watch them grow up. He loved them, and he just couldn't be around. Had to be on the road. He was a wild thing. And I had to look at his chart because I knew it was Jupiter-Uranus. I looked at his chart, and there was the Scorpio sun. There was the Scorpio sun conjuncting Jupiter opposite Uranus. He was Sun, Jupiter opposite Uranus. And to make it worse, his moon was in Gemini. So the guy literally couldn't sit still. But everybody loved him, and it took the kids a long time to understand that their father could not belong to the family. He was too big for the family. He belonged to the public. And they didn't get that till he got in his 80s, and they gave him the night where they retired his number, and the family finally understood that trying to make dad operate as a dad for the family was against his nature. So Jupiter-Uranus is this wild energy, and if it's put in the right place, it's wonderful. And if you put it in the middle of a convent, it's probably not too good. Okay, Jupiter-Neptune. Now, we got a lot to talk about here. Jupiter-Neptune. Now, one thing about it is this. Jupiter and Neptune are 2 of your most spiritual planets there are. Jupiter is spiritual in the sense of philosophy, growing high degree of spirit, but it doesn't fuse with God energy. It's not big enough to even think about the unboundedness. Neptune is unbounded. Almost always, when you see somebody with a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, almost always, they have a very big spiritual interest. The closer, the stronger. When you have Jupiter opposite Neptune, Jupiter square Neptune, the story is quite different. Jupiter trine, Jupiter sextile. I see it a lot because I deal a lot with spiritual people. When you have Jupiter, Neptune, I don't care if you're in the middle living with a bunch of atheists, you're going to be different than your brothers and sisters. Jupiter, Neptune people are drawn towards spirit. They don't even know why. When you have the Jupiter opposite Neptune or the Jupiter square Neptune, you have real strong proclivities towards cultship. That's why when Mr. Trump was coming on the scene, Jupiter and Neptune were out there in the sky, big time, approaching each other. And I wrote an article 3 years ago telling you about delusion or inspiration. Choose delusion or inspiration. Because the bad side of Jupiter and Neptune is delusion and getting in a cult. The good side is true godly inspiration. At the time, I believed it was acting through Bernie Sanders, and I believe that Bernie was really, truly trying to bring us together as one. That's why I wrote that article. So as the Jupiter-Neptune got closer, people started pairing off. And then, unfortunately, people started comparing non-Trump with her, whatever her name was, Hillary, and then the whole thing got really out of whack. So The good side, when Jupiter Neptune is strong, it definitely means you've had past lives where you've been involved in spiritual calling, yes. When it is troubled, like square or opposite, you're really tempted to be deluded, to think you are God, to think you're Jesus. And as Ram Dass said a long time ago, it's okay to think you're Jesus, but not to think that you're the only one. He says, if you think you're Jesus, you think I'm Jesus too, then you're okay. But if you think you're Jesus, no one else is, you got problems. That's really what it's about. And some of the most deluded people I've ever seen have Jupiter-Neptune square, Jupiter-Neptune opposition. If you see the opposition, you'd better be really, really careful before you buy anything or invest in this person, because they have this. What happens is the spiritual calling is real, then it's wrong, then it's real, then it's not. Then it's on, then it's off, then it's real, then it's not. And it's really like a flickering light. It's on, it's not. It's real, it's not. It's real, it's not. I don't know. And then they get all we're talking about the connections of planets here. And I will repeat myself. When you're looking for positives, you will see them in the trines and in the sextiles. Many times with Jupiter, Neptune, you will see really positive stuff out of the conjunction. The other ones are negative. When you get to the quincux, people don't even know what a quincux is here. They don't know what an inconjunct is. When you get into other aspects, what you have is the stress. The two planets are not working in harmony. So here's what happens when you have Jupiter, Neptune not working in harmony. It's spiritual because I picked it up and I know so. And my antenna picked it up and it must be real. You have no idea if it's real in the way they're sounding. Sure doesn't sound real. So you got to be very, very careful when you inspect Jupiter, Neptune. And keep in mind, this is very real here. When Jupiter and Neptune combine, it's very possible that you have both going on at the same time. I know a lot about this because I see it a lot. That you actually have a spiritual contact. And you all know how easy it is to fool yourself spiritually, how to kid yourself. Oh, God told me to do that. Well, did he really? So you got to be very careful with all contacts. As I've read through so many books, when Jupiter, when Spirit is guiding you, as opposed to the ego guiding you, it will be quiet, it will seem right, it will be fluid. When there's ego involved and I get involved, and you start thinking about attainments and positions and how you're going to look, you're most assuredly being deluded. Okay, Jupiter, Neptune, Jupiter, Pluto. There's not much literature on Jupiter, Pluto, and it's a shame because I see it a lot. And what I gathered from Arroyo in the early days, I find to be true. Jupiter, Pluto people are into power trips. Think about it now. The Jupiter wants to expand, and the Pluto says, well, heck yeah, let's expand. Let's take Mongolia. Let's take Upper Iran. Let's take it all. And Jupiter goes, hell yeah. So you got to watch Jupiter and Pluto doesn't get out of his mind with power needs. When I do composite charts between two people, when I see Jupiter opposite Pluto or Jupiter square Pluto, heavy aspects between Jupiter and Pluto between the two, I know there's a power struggle going on between those two people. I don't know what it means. But when Jupiter and Pluto are trine, Jupiter-Pluto sextile, there's a healthy sense of growth, but it's not grabbing more than you can digest. Jupiter-Pluto, when it's out of its mind, when it's in bad connection, it wants to grab more than it can handle, bite more than it can chew. And that's where the power struggle ensues. Now we go to Saturn. We go Saturn outward, and each list we go through gets smaller. Saturn Uranus. I'm skipping right over Chiron. That's where Chiron is between Saturn and Uranus, in a belt called the Centaurs. Just like an asteroid belt, but the asteroids are between Mars and Jupiter, and the Centaurs are just like asteroids, only they're out between Saturn and Uranus. The significant thing about that part of the zodiac is this. Okay. These 5 are your personal planets: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. Personal. These 2 are the social planets. Social. These 3 are your outer planets, your impersonal. You're beyond personal. They become more the collective. So this is why right in this area, right between Saturn and Uranus, this is where the Centaurs live. And that is where king of the Centaurs is Chiron. That's where he lives. When you got connection between Saturn and Uranus, Saturn is very physical, it is down to earth, it's very traditional. Uranus is very untraditional, unpredictable. Let's break things up and see what we get. It loves the spirit of chaos. Saturn can't stand the theory of chaos. So when Saturn and Uranus are in harmony, you have that ability, just like Jupiter, Saturn, you have the ability to grow. Let me get this straight. When Saturn and Uranus are in harmony, you have the ability to be sensible, allow things to break up and change, put it back together. When a lot of people are troubled, one of the main reasons people are troubled is their Saturn will not allow their Uranus to get involved. And you can't tell the outer planets that they're not allowed. You don't tell the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, anything. They tell you. They're big time planets. They don't care what you think. They will break you if you don't listen. So Saturn, I'm building a restaurant. I'm making the doors look nice. I got the menu. I got the people coming. We're making money. The years go by. It's getting old. The menu's getting old. The people are kind of bored. You sense the need to change. Stop, buzzsaw, hammer, saw. Excuse my dirt while we change this restaurant. Uranus comes in. Wow, bang, bang, bang. You're trying to eat. Vacuum cleaner going by and all this. You got all this chaos, dust everywhere. Excuse our dirt while we modernize. Saturn needs to shut up and yield to it. And then Uranus comes in, and 2 weeks later, wow, grand opening. People come in, the whole place is brand new. More windows, more light, better food. Saturn gave into it. Uranus was right. Uranus makes things better, and it renews it. Then what does Saturn do? It helps to secure it, helps to tack down the carpet, helps to advertise. It starts to affirm and confirm. That's what Saturn does. It locks things down. So you lock it down, Uranus breaks it up. You lock it down, Uranus breaks it up. You have to have a rhythm between these two. A country can get in trouble because of this. People can get in trouble because of this. Oh, honey, we've become so stale. When was the last time we went on a holiday? Well, it was about 12 years ago. Well, don't you think we need a holiday? Well, heck yeah. Well, get rid of your fears, let go, and go. Go somewhere wild and crazy and have fun. So just like Jupiter and Saturn need to work together, Saturn and Uranus have to work together. So if they're in harmony, that means that you work along and you realize when Uranus' voice comes around that it's time to let go and have sweeping changes, and then Saturn will put it back together. Because Saturn's full of fear. It's just full of fear. Oh, if I let you break things, am I going to ever get it back together? No. Saturn is just blah, 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 fills you with fear. Because Saturn doesn't trust. That's the problem. Uranus trusts in itself. Uranus trusts in the moment. Uranus trusts in spontaneity. Well, you try to explain that to Saturn. What the hell does that mean? Uranus says, I'm living on the edge. I'm living on the moment. That's where life is. Saturn is, well, I didn't see that on my Excel spreadsheet. When's that time? What time's that coming and how many am I going to get? So you can see Saturn will lead you to death. If you don't watch Saturn, it'll talk you into a nice, cozy, paid-for coffin. You understand? You'll be in a nice little coffin. Fits you perfectly. All your money's in there with you, too. What are you going to do with it? The planets are liars. They will all lie to you. I'm the one you need. Don't listen to him. I'm the one you need. Don't listen to her. You need them all because they're all wrong, working in concert. Then we're talking. So just like Jupiter expanded, Saturn needs to put a cap on it. Uranus needs to come along when things become too stale. Uranus needs to come along and break things up. Now, for an example, about next week when we do astrodrama, I'm gonna give you an example. I'm gonna point to one of you, unless you tell me you don't want to play. I'm gonna point to one of you and say, we got a real dull party, and I'll point to Suzanne and I'll say, you're Uranus, and you're walking into this party, and tell me what you got to say. And once you start saying it with your own words, you'll start to feel the Uranus that's in you. Oh, come on, man, let's have some fun. Let's put these things away. That's old-fashioned. Forget the cars. Let's try this new stuff I want to show you guys. Okay, so that's what happened with Saturn and Uranus. So it's very important that they work together, especially because you're now bridging the gap into the collective planets. The collective planets have more to do with the world itself is changing, and that's changing me. Okay, Saturn Neptune, very difficult. One of the hardest ones you'll ever see. You'll see it all the time. One is real, one is not. One's down to earth, one doesn't know what earth is. One is all physical and get your needs met. Neptune's all about letting go and merging with the oneness. It's a very, very difficult planetary combination to discern in a natal chart. Now, I remember when I was first writing newsletters about 10 years ago, we were dealing with a very slow Saturn opposition to Neptune in the sky. And I remember writing so much about being real, being unreal. So what do you think? What do you think Saturn Neptune means? It means understanding what is real, understanding where you got to pay your bills, understanding what your limitations are, and understanding that there's another part of you that's not limited. It doesn't care about the bills. It cares about your spirit. And you listen to either one, it will kill you. Neptune will take you over the cliff and out into the ocean, and you got nothing to eat, you drown. Saturn will put you in a nice fitting coffin. There's nothing to eat, there's no food because there's no spirit. When you have the two in sync, you got your material life in sync with your spiritual life. You got your material life in sync with your spiritual life. It's very difficult. I've seen so many people born with Saturn, Neptune opposite Venus, Saturn, Neptune opposite the moon. Is very tough to translate. Don't feel bad if you get a planet like a personal planet getting involved with these outer planets. You feel like you can't translate it. Good luck and welcome to the crowd, because most of us can't. Outer planets are very difficult. Saturn, Pluto. Just say it to yourself. Saturn, Pluto. Saturn, Pluto. Pluto's two-thirds of the way through Capricorn. Saturn's in Capricorn. Saturn is approaching Pluto. About another year, Saturn will be together with Pluto. Right now, Mars is right here. All three of them are there. Pluto is going 2/3 through Capricorn till 2024. It'll go off the screen. But right now it's in the last third of Capricorn. Saturn is approaching. Well, I don't have to sound like a genius to tell you, these are two very tough planets. Yes, they are very grave and very strongly aspected right in the middle of Elke's chart. Elke's chart has Saturn here and Pluto at the bottom, or else reversed, whatever it is. They're very, very strong in her chart, which means she came from a background of a lot of hardship. Saturn Pluto is Siberia. Saturn Pluto is 9/11. Saturn Pluto is the Holocaust. It's heavy parts of life. It doesn't always have to be severe, but it leans towards the heavier parts of life. Because just think about Saturn's nature and think about Pluto's nature, there's not much part there for joy. Usually what Saturn Pluto represents in a birth chart is somebody who dragged into this lifetime a sense of carrying the world on their own two shoulders. Almost everybody I've seen with Saturn Pluto, oh, age 14, I had to give up my childhood and raise the family because my mom left. I had to raise the kids. These are very common stories with Saturn Pluto. Now I'm going to tell you why. It's exactly because of past lives. I don't understand it. Doesn't mean I'm for it. But people with Saturn Pluto combination have a great sense of carrying the world on their shoulders. And one of the greatest things I have to do with these people is work real hard with them to convince them that they don't have to keep carrying it. But it's a deeply karmic issue. Not Arroyo, but Richard Tarnas writes a lot about Saturn Pluto times in his Cosmos and Psyche book. He goes chapter after chapter after chapter, showing you how it brought the Holocaust and how it brought the Great Depression. He maps out each single time that these two planets, these ages came about when these two planets were together. This is one of the main reasons things are so tough right now, beside the Pluto return and beside Neptune being in Pisces, beside Eris bringing about the female rebirth of the feminine. Saturn is approaching Pluto. When Saturn approaches Pluto, people ask me, hey, Rick, when's it going to straighten out? Hey, Rick, when's it going to lighten up? Well, I don't have any parties on my schedule with Saturn and Pluto approaching me. It does not mean things have to be doom and gloom, but it does mean if you're going to try to skip out of your responsibilities, you are going to be stopped. Period. If you own up to your responsibilities and you do the work, Saturn and Pluto will be lighter on you. So on the good side, like a Saturn-Pluto trine, Saturn-Pluto sextile, on the good side, it makes you really, really strong. People can't knock you off the mountain. And on the bad side, you'll get gloomy, you'll be pessimistic, you'll actually draw negativity to yourself. Uranus, there aren't many left now. And I'm not going to really go into the final few because they're just too difficult to talk about. Uranus, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, Pluto. They're just so universal. They're very hard to discuss. So let me go back to the graphic. Okay. So you see how we started out light with the sun and the moon, and things just get more and more intense as we get to the outer planets. Doesn't surprise you that Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, or that Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. When you talk about a rulership, you might ask yourself, what's the difference between a planet and a sign? It's a really good question. You know what Saturn's like, and you know Saturn rules Capricorn, but yet Saturn and Capricorn are two different things, but they're really similar. Saturn is a planet, Capricorn is a sign. Mars is an energy, Aries is a sign. So they're very closely related. I don't even know if I could put them into words. I can say more to you that a planet represents a downright energy. Okay. So to show you back with this diagram, in case you want to download it, this is what planet rules Leo. Sun rules Leo. Moon rules Cancer. In the old days, Mercury ruled Gemini and Virgo. In the old days, we didn't have enough planets. Venus ruled Taurus and Libra. Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. Jupiter, etc., etc. Today, we look at Mars as ruling Scorpio, and Pluto rules Scorpio, and Mars as a sub-ruler of Scorpio. But we know for sure that Mars is a ruler of Aries. And we know Jupiter is definitely paired up with Sagittarius, and now Pisces is ruled by Neptune. So this chart will help you to understand this. The exaltation means that this planet operates the best in this sign. It means the sun can be itself best when it's found in the sign of Aries. The moon can do its thing best when it's in the sign of Taurus. Mercury is best when it's in the sign of Virgo, etc. This one is merely the opposite of that. The fall is the weakest position. And the detriment is the opposite of this. Wherever it rules and its opposition. Wherever it rules and its opposition. Wherever it rules and its opposition. So all in all, these planets are best in the signs where they rule or in the signs where they're in exaltation. And their worst placements are in the signs where in the fall or in the detriment. Believe it or not, it looks like a complicated matter, but it's really a pretty simple thing to learn. I am going to put it on pause. I'll be right back in just a second. I'm recording. Yay, it says we're recording. Good. Okay, now, I want to give you that URL one more time. And let's see, I wanted to remind you. Yes. Okay, if you would like a copy to download of the chart I just showed you, go onto your web browser and go to starself.com/back/class/rulerships, plural.jpg. And you will get that diagram and you can download it for yourself. Now, I can't tell you how easy you guys got it, okay? In the old days, we had a big fat book with where the planets were, a great big fat book with every city on the planet, and a great big book that told us all the latitudes and longitudes. We went through all this mathematics just to get one chart, okay? And in a lot of ways, we were a lot better off because we were forced to do it by hand. The advantage of now is the computers are so much more accurate and they're so much faster, but you can sense, I can tell you right away if a chart's calculated right or wrong because I've gone through it by hand so many times. So I really liked what Melody was doing last week out of California. She's teaching herself how to calculate a chart by hand. And someday when I feel brave, I'm going to teach you to do it on this show. Now, because it really does help you to understand what a local sidereal time is and Greenwich Mean Time is, and understand what before I forget how to do it, the table of houses is. Now, for example, one of the reasons you need to know that the moon is exalted in Taurus, for example, why is the moon so exaltation? That means the best place for the moon is in Taurus. Well, think you got a moon. The moon is so fluid and crying all the time and loving. Oh boy, so emotional. You put it in Taurus, and Taurus is so strong. It's like that concave section that you removed out of the earth. And Earth is at home when water's in it. Water's at home in Earth. In the zodiac, water and earth go together, and air and fire go together, not the other way around. Okay, the reason I'm doing this is this. Hey, I just got a reading, and I'm a Cancer, and what do you think? What's my best sign I should match up with? Well, I can't answer that question. The old-time people would tell you, well, you're a Cancer, let's match you up with Scorpios or Pisces. Well, it's not correct because it's too glib. It's too shallow. There's not enough of an explanation going on. A Cancer person might be better off with somebody with a moon in Aquarius if the moon is exalted, if the moon is in a great place. Say I'm a Cancer guy, and I'm dating a person with moon in Aquarius. Typically, they don't get along. But that person's moon is at the top of the chart, or that moon is on their ascendant. In that person's chart, the moon is a big deal. In other words, they're more Cancerian than they are Aquarian. So what I tell people, hi, I'm Karen, I'm from Florida. I'm a Leo, I got a Leo, and I got a lot of Virgo. What should I match up with? I got a lot of Leo, a lot of Virgo. Well, certainly you want people with a lot of Leo energies, a lot of Virgo energies, maybe the other fire energies like Sag and Air, but you definitely want a lot of Chiron, because in my opinion, Chiron is the ruler of Virgos. So somebody with a really strong Chiron might actually be better for you because you have a little bit of differences that you can work through, and it's a healthy imbalance. Another example, I might be a Pisces person, and I've got a lot of Capricorn. And you might match me well with a Capricorn person because my Saturn is so strong. So after a while, you start to see the planet that it rules what sign almost as the same. Like I said, Sag is an energy, Jupiter is a planet. They're similar, but yet they're different. So this is why some things you just have to digest and know these things. You have to know what planet rules what sign. Now, I'm going to turn off the feed through to YouTube. We'll say goodbye to the YouTubers for tonight. Let you know that next week we're going to do astrodrama, where we're going to be taking turns speaking for the planets, which is really how you learn because it comes up from within you. And then hopefully in a couple of weeks I'll be able to get Stephen Poplin on the show, who's this phenomenal hypnotist, regressionist, and does a lot of work with Michael Newton and talk about life between lives. Very intriguing, fabulous guy. So thank you all, you YouTubers, for tuning in. Join us next week at 8 if you would like. Good night and thank you.